Okay, let's just test this really quick. Sweet. From the echo, you guys can tell. Test successful. Welcome to Coleslaw Cup Round 12, Singapore. I'm your only commentator, Will Ans. I hope you can live with that. Unfortunately, Jacko is not very well, so he can't join us here today. But I know you guys only watch so you can hear my my voice serenade you through the 30-odd laps of the Singapore Marina circuit, which, as you can clearly see, is rather wet at the moment. It's forecast to be a wet qualifying and a wet race. That's all the details that we have. I'm not entirely sure how wet it's going to be, how long it's going to be wet for. All I can say is that's what she said. So let's take a quick on provisional poll as he makes his way through the game. Not entirely sure if he is on a hot lap. Bang! Dace answers it for me. Thank you very much, Dace. That's a 152.9. Immediately he beats it. Lanzi immediately with a 152.2. Brilliant lap time from the Dutchman. Obviously we've got 10.5 minutes left of this session, so I would imagine most of the drivers are still getting a feel for just how much grip there is. Unholy Red Eye jumping up there at 153.1 all the way up to 83. If you'll excuse me for one second, I think I need to turn my up as we ride on board with the cars. Sometimes those engines so hopefully this is good. If it isn't, I don't know what to tell you, as Texas Tornado has actually gone the fastest there. I do apologise for this again. It was a rather late notice on Jacko's illness, so we have to make do a little bit, but that's fine. We can make do. Ryan Rod setting the fastest lap. Who would have expected that? Haha, me. Dace beating Ryan Rod provisional pole time with the fastest lap of the second, 50.3. So they're showing all drivers. Ryan Rods. Now, of course, we can't tell whether he is hard or not hard from the light on over the car. He has 6% battery. I would assume he's not going to improve on this particular one. Let's have a look at Lanzi. Mike's looking at him. For most drivers, I'd say that they'd be on a cooldown lap now with the amount of ERS he has, but it is Dace, so the propensity for bozosity is probably raise that. Though, he might be on a hot lap. We'll have to wait and see. The provisional pole is a 1 minute 50.3. You'll be hard pressed to find a slower lap than that on the F1 calendar as well. It's a 149.7. A combination of this slow as the wet conditions reduce the Austria race that we saw relatively recently. Improve a 148.9, beating Ryan Rod's by just over 7/10 of a second. That's the fastest lap time we have seen this qualifying session thus far. Dace is into the pits. He'll get a new set of intermediate tyres and a bit of fuel, and he'll be back out and ready to go. I'd imagine Bursey coming into the pits as well. Everyone all the way down to Army Forever is in the pits, but we don't look at Army because it's not like he's going to get pole. 0% battery, so of course went on his in lap after that stick pole lap. There's a possibility here that Ryan Rod's is on a hot lap, though it doesn't look like it because his battery has stayed at 27% through that entire straight. If he was on a hot lap, I'd imagine he'd be deploying it, percentage would go down. As it did not, I find it rather unlikely. Most drivers in the pit for the time Clancy on an in lap. Ryan, I think, also on either an in lap or a normal cool lap. What's Blade doing? I know that's what everybody's wondering. Well, there's a possibility that he might be on a hot lap here. It's hard to tell as we see Ryan Rod's peeling off into the pits as I expected. Let's have a look at Electric Blade. The Alfa Romeo driver approaching the chicane. Through the right and then through the left, and then through the right and through the left he goes, and into the pits. Texas Tornado on an outlap, Sharia Coleslaw on an outlap, Army Forever on an underwhelm as always. Let's see what Sharia may do. Texas Tornado was ahead of him in the lap. Let's actually follow Sharia for this lap. See what he can do. Nicky's on that lap as well. Hopefully he won't spin. That's the thing with Nicky. He can produce a decent lap. He can have some decent pace, but he needs to keep it on the track. It's something he struggled with in Coleslaw Cup this season. He's kind of like the slower version of Dace. Through the final corner comes Sharia Coleslaw to start his hot lap. All the way to the right hand side. That really allows you to open up the left-hander here of turn 1 that turns to turn 2 and then turn 3 rather quickly as you negotiate your way through that triple chicane. He has his Red Bull teammate Impossible Bacon ahead of him, who I'm sure he is communicating with. He'll get a nice tow here down pretty much the only straight of note, but of course the DRS not enabled with the wet condition. I assume, I don't think I've seen a DRS enabled message, although I would think that would come rather soon. Only 3 minutes and 40 seconds after the session. Sharia, a very strange spin there by him. I'm entirely sure what happened as DRS is not enabled. So yeah, that is the demarcation of wet to dry conditions on the track. The dry compounds will now be faster than the intermediates. Sharia will have to limp home without a wing. And if he's very, very quick, perhaps he will get a lap in here, although it might be a little bit difficult for him. I think he'll manage to pull it off. Here's Texas Tornado. What tyres is he on? He's on the soft tyres, so the possibility here for him to jump up the timing screens as he comes over the, I believe it's the Anderson Bridge, through the left-hander. And the DRS will be wide open on that Mercedes. Yes, there it is. The DRS now enabled, of course, as I mentioned previously. Braking down for the right-hander. He has a little bit of space there on the left he can use. Of course, he's not invalid until he puts all 4 tyres over that white line, so there's definitely time that he can gain. I'm going to just clip this really quickly because I heard a very strange noise. Of course, ghosts are real, so that's what that clip B as Texas Tornado grabs the provisional pole position. 1:41.9 for the Mercedes driver, blowing Lanzi's time out of the water. Lanzi needs to get out of the pits incredibly soon if he wants to set a representative lap time. He might struggle. He might really struggle. His career Coleslaw retires in the pits, I believe that is. Time in. Actually, he has left the pits. This is going to be incredibly close. Lanzi's going to have to put in a hot lap on his out lap here if he wants to get around in time. Let's have a look at Bursey. Bursey, a driver that we don't pay too much attention to, but he's had a few really solid drives there where he's made his way up a few positions in the field. When he put that Haas in a rain field in the air thrown qualifying, that's a 1:39.3 by Bursey. Puts himself on provisional pole position. Texas Tornado has backed off. He's not pushing. He's letting Lanzi by, I think that is. Get around to set a new Texas Tornado to set a new lap as well. That shows the track evolution here as the water dries away. Suddenly the grip on the track is ramping straight up in the air like Tony Hawk Skater 3 off of a ramp. Unholy Red Eye putting himself in P2, I believe, or I was tripping and he was there already. VTech is the one, I think, actually. I noticed someone jump up, and I think it was VTech. Up to P4, very high heights for VTech. He usually prefers to start somewhere in the middle or lower down in the field, but put a good lap in there. And there goes Scavney, a 1:39.2. Can he beat Ryan Rods here? You can tell we're in Coleslaw Cup and not Midwest. He's ahead of the Ferrari driver. The time about to tick to 0 as well. So any drivers currently on a lap may finish their lap now, but no laps can be started after this point that will count towards a final qualifying time. Did Lanzi make it? Yes, he did. Electric Blade with a 1:38.5. This may be a case of whoever crosses the line latest wins, because that track is ramping up. Electric Blade has shaved another 0.7 of a second off of Scavney's time. He's backed off of his lap, as you can quite clearly see. He is not going to be into the pits. Unholy Red Eye will be crossing the line here. Can he improve? I'm sure he can. A 1:40.2 keeps him in P4. Texas Tornado still pretty early in. Let's have a look at Lanzi as he crosses the Anderson Bridge. Nice and close to the wall on that right hand side. Always terrifies you as a driver, but oh my goodness, does it feel satisfying to almost quite as what improves to 1:37.3, beating out Electric Blade. But can Lanzi put that Alpine on pole position? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. A few drivers, both of the Mercedes teammates, having finished their laps now. As up jumps Dusty to P4, the Canadian, setting a decent enough lap time as Lanzi crosses the line. He puts himself P2, missing out on pole by less than half a second, by half a tenth, sorry, is what I meant to say there. And I think that brings an end to qualifying. Scavney peeling off into the pits. And Ryan Rods is going to be our pole position driver. If you had tuned into Soda's section in the Discord, you might not have expected this, but if you were wise and you looked in the Willands predictions, this wouldn't be a surprise to you. A 1:37.3 there by Ryan Rods. In P2 with Day P3. Electric Blade put in a strong showing, putting himself P4. And let's go through the results. So Ryan Rods, Lanzi and Dace makes up your top three, with Electric Blade P4, as I mentioned previously. Cam Tizzle in P5 with Dusty in P6, the highest placed Canadian in this lobby. Scavney in P7 with Bursey in P8. Nicky P9, quite high up. He just needs to not spin for him, unfortunately. Unholy Red Eye P10 with Texas Tornado P11, VTEC P12, Army P13, Sharia Coleslaw with P14. He underperformed, only setting a lap on intermediate tyres, which put him in 15, who has shown that he wants the side of the back, because a 158 is not a representative time for him. So I think he wants to do a cheeky little last two question mark challenge, so we'll have to keep our eye on that one. Unfortunate not to have Jacko here as I rustle around with my bag of Sainsbury's and shortbread. Just me on my own, which means I won't be reviewing any hot chocolate because I'm going to save that for the future rounds. The little break here for the drivers to sort out their setups, sort out their strategies, although I think the weather is going to dictate the strategies today, folks, because look at this rain. It's just like the start of qualifying. Intermediate tyres will be the tyre of choice, I'd imagine. We don't know exactly how the weather's going to go from here. It might dry up. It might keep raining. I've got no information. If I did, I'd tell you. But I don't. Rymod's obviously starting on pole, but with weather like this, there is always the opportunity for the grid order to be shook up completely. You get a little bit lucky where you just extend your stint and suddenly it dries out. Boom. Money. If there's a safety car at a particular time where it's drying up, maybe the order stays the same, but everybody switches to the drier tyres. We don't know yet, but that is the beauty of this as the timer ticks down. Now only 25 seconds left until the beginning of the formation lap. I don't know about everybody else, but I for one have missed the real life Formula One to an extent that I cannot describe. 10 seconds now remaining. Just had delivery of the Williams car launched earlier on today, the beautiful Duracell car, as we watch the beginning of the formation lap. I think it's going to be a good season this year. Hopefully we don't see Mercedes dominance, which is what I did actually predict, unfortunately. I hope that for once my predictions are incorrect, unlike my predictions about the lap on which they spin, which is usually correct. Unfortunate to say. Let's have a look. Shout out to the Red Bull pair, P14 and P15. Clearly they think, let's make it fair on the competition here. Let's start P14 and P15. Maybe, just maybe, get up on 2. That must be their thinking there. But the Alpine guys have a decent enough starting position, P2 and P7. I think some of the teams would trade for that in a heartbeat, such as McLaren or Haas. Talking about McLaren, we got Cam Tissell in P5, Unholy Red Eye P10. A solid result for the based outfit. They will be looking to improve on that one though, I would imagine. Rymod's in P1 without a teammate. He'll be looking to carry Ferrari his own by winning this race. P8 and P12, pretty decent showing. Not amazing, but and unlike real life, Mercedes really struggling. It's like the start of last season, but Tornado at least that can hopefully carry that. His teammate not really worth mentioning. Was qualified for his parking on the grid, so that means he's got to start a foot or so back, which is going to really hinder him on the start. Lanzi looks to have that positioning nailed. We'll ride on board with Alleged. We're going with Dace. Dace starting P3. Let's bring up the track map. I don't think we want any of the other. We go to 5 red lights, and away we go. Lanzi looks to have gotten a good start. He's already inside of Ryan into 1. Ryan Mod's swooping around the outside though, cutting Lanzi's line off, and he's under pressure from Dace, who has to straddle the curbing there like Alonso in 2018. Down the inside is Electric Blade as well. On Dace, we have a few drivers. Looks like he has that position pretty comfortably. Texas Tornado getting his way past Nicky 64 as Ryan Mod's down the street. Lanzi a little while back, and Dace even further back from him, but he's under pressure from Electric Blade. Only 3/10 separating the Williams and Alfa Romeo driver. Scavney half a second back from Bursey also. Bursey breaking late there, a little bit of latency involved as well. Sorry, that was Texas Tornado breaking late, who then finds himself down the inside of Scavney, who's running a little bit wide, and Scavney has to cede that place. Although unfortunately Nicky finds himself on the position. And he's as we go back to the lead, we see Ryan Mods leading. Lanzi in second place with Dace just behind him. Electric Blade in fourth. Over a second ahead of Dusty. Normally we would be paying attention to this, as it means he would be out of the DRS, but of course with this wet weather it's not safe to have the DRS open, so DRS will not be enabled for the time being. Hopefully the timing screen will fix themselves relatively. Ryan will take the fastest lap so far though. Clearly he's extending his advantage on lap 1, as we can see. He seems to be keeping with Lanzi. Just over a second behind him. Texas Tornado under pressure from Scavney, the guy that he passed on lap 1, of course. Tizzle trying to hold on to the back of Dusty as well. Dusty, the Tornado, sorry, Dusty is what I meant to say. VTEC getting his way up into 14th. He finds himself 4 seconds away from Impossible Bacon now in P13, something he'll want to improve as Texas Tornado takes the corner much tighter than Bursey. Perhaps that's a difference in driving philosophy between the two drivers. Perhaps difference in grip. Texas Tornado though all over the back of Bursey, who sees a whole lot of Mercedes in his mirrors. They have Scavney just behind them as well. If any of those drivers make some mistake, Scavney will be right there to take advantage of that situation. Ryan Mods sets the fastest lap of the race with a 155.235. The Scuderia Ferrari driver looking to further extend his advantage. Of course, he doesn't have to worry about the DRS, as mentioned earlier, due to this wet weather. However, he will want to maintain a good gap if he can, regardless of whether the drag reduction system is in effect or not. Texas Tornado Perhaps struggling slightly more to keep up with Burzy than before, however he is still pretty close behind him. He does have that pressure from Scavney as well, which he has to contend with. Scavney running wide there, as I mentioned his name, almost on cue. And Holy Red Eye almost half a second only behind Nicky. But of course, this is the reality of Singapore. It's difficult to make a pass, as we see on ready. Definitely not in his strat. Dace in P3, less than a second behind Lanzi, as he sets the fastest second sector of the evening so far. Electric Blade just under 2 seconds behind him. Lanzi slowly but surely falling away from the back of Ryan Rods. Of course, my prediction personally for this race was Ryan Rods P1, Dace P2 and Lanzi P3. I'm not a million away from that prediction as it stands, as Ryan Rods sets another fastest lap of the race, a 1:55, but Electric Blade beats it with a 1:54, the first driver to set a 1:54 so far this race. Let's watch along with the two Red Bull drivers as they closer to Holy Red Eye. You would expect certainly Bacon, but most likely Bacon and Sharia to both ahead of Holy Red Eye in a race. So, of course, the qualifying did put them at a disadvantage, but it's a disadvantage that they would like to make up for. Top back on board with the McLaren driver of Cam Tizzle. He has set well in this league after making his debut. Now recognised as one of the better midfield drivers within the Coleslaw Cup. He's trying to put some pressure on Dusty Lusky. It does look like the track is drying up ever so slightly. It is still raining. It's definitely not time to think about the slicks just yet. But we definitely have a distinct from Ryan Rod to Electric Blade. See 5.6 seconds behind in P5. The leader of this pack that goes all the way back to Impossible Bacon in P13. We then have VTEC also in Sector 3. And then we have Army who, yeah. He's just entered Sector 2. Dace in P3, less than a second behind Lanzi. Trying to put that pressure on. Electric Blade falling into a no man's land between the P5 Tauri and the P3 Dace TG2 in the Williams. He has to make sure that he tries to keep up with Dace here. With a lot of the league, sorry. Big drivers, I nearly said that the wrong way around. To finish P4 in a Coleslaw Cup race is certainly not an achievement to be snubbed at. Burzy just behind Cam Tizzle as Unholy Red Eye gets our first track limit warning of the evening, a 3-second time penalty for multiple track limit warnings. Cam Tizzle all over the back of Dusty Lusky's 93. This is the problem with Singapore though. It's very difficult to move. Ride mod sets at 153.3, the first driver into the 153s all evening. Probably shows how much it's drying out, as I believe the rain has stopped. I don't see any raindrops anymore. No, there's certainly no rain there. So we could see a pit stop for the dry tyres coming relatively soon. Of course, we are a fifth of the way through this race. The track's still clearly too wet for the dry tyres, it would seem. However, with no rain, Formula One cars are the best vacuum cleaners on the planet. So we could definitely see the track drying up from this point forwards. We see actually the peloton of cars here from P5 all the way down to P13. However, even that grouping is starting to split slightly, with Nicky falling away from the back of Scavney. Suppose you could say P9 and P10 are a Scav-Nicky duo. Ryrod's enjoying a healthy but not entirely comfortable lead at P1 as he sets another fastest lap at 153.1, extending his gap further over Lanzi. Dace at 1.1 seconds behind him. But here's the interesting thing, of course, we're looking at wet weather driving. The question has to be asked, if the track dries up, will the relative pace of each driver stay the same? I doubt it will. We're going to have some drivers that are more strong in these difficult wet conditions than other drivers that might be more at home and more suited to the dry conditions. So the whole race could get turned up on its head here. I expect it to be dry enough for slicks by at the very latest lap 10 or 11, though it doesn't seem like the track has dried up much in the last lap or so. Cam Tizzle less than half a second behind Dusty Lusky, really putting the pressure on here. If this was any other track, perhaps maybe Monaco, you'd think maybe he'd be looking at making a move here, but it is difficult to pass here in Singapore. Singapore is a difficult conundrum from a setup perspective. Of course, it's mostly corners, so you really need the downforce in order to have pace. But if you pass people, you need lower downforce to make the move down the main straight, as we have a problem here for one of the Rebel drivers. I think it's Impossible Bacon who I accidentally skipped there. Not sure if he has any damage. He doesn't have any noticeable damage, I don't believe. However, he may have some damage that we can't quite see. Unfortunate for the Rebel driver. But look on the bright side, at least he didn't lose any positions from that, as Electric Blade sets the fastest lap of the race, the first driver into the 152s. I don't think we'll see any driver pitting this lap for the dries. It's quite clearly a pretty shimmering wet surface out there. It doesn't seem wide to box for dry tyres, as the intermediates are going to be quicker. Another thing to consider is if you go for the dry tyres now, you're most likely going to end up facing either a wall or facing backwards. So perhaps not the type of risk you'd want to take. For the lead 40 cars in this race, I don't think it's going to be dry enough by the time they get to the pit entry to think about making the move for slicks this lap. However, Army being almost an entire minute behind, only 8 laps into this race, perhaps it will be dry enough for him. Perhaps he can make up a lot of that distance on dry tyres if it comes to it. Cam Tizzle looking to the inside there of Dusty Lusky, but there's no way through for the McLaren driver. Four cars here, all very, very close together. Any one of them could make a move on one of the others, but this is a very difficult track to make overtakes at. GSR Ryan Rod saying the fastest lap of the race so far, as we see the track continue to dry out. A new fastest lap being posted pretty much every 1 or 2 laps now. A 1:52.0 there by Ryan Rods, knocking on the door of the 151s. Still too wet, sorry, for the dry tyres. Bursey under pressure from Texas Tornado there, who can't spin his way into a move. Dace catching up with Lanzi though, the Williams driver, hoping to make his way past the Alpine of the... Only 8 tenths separating them, however Ryan Rods now has a... We see that lead from Lanzi's perspective. Ryan Rods going into the left-hander ahead. Cam Tizzle all over the back of Dusty Lusky. The Canadian does not let him by. Cam Tizzle snowed in there by that British Columbian winter. Scavney getting involved in this battle as well in P9. He's not too far off the back of Texas Tornado. You see everybody taking different lines pretty much here, trying to give themselves any chance of gaining an advantage over the driver ahead of them to maybe make a move, but it's not really happening for them out there on the streets of Singapore. Ryan Rods finally breaking the 151, improving by a tenth or so from his previous lap time, as Dace then beats it by just tenths of a second, hundredths of a second, sorry. Cam Tizzle still all over the back of Dusty Lusky, but unable to make a move. He's following closely though through Raffles Boulevard and can't quite get past the Canadian into turn 4, I believe that is. Perhaps turn 5. Cam Tizzle still all over the back of the Canadian. Cam Tizzle over the back of Dusty Lusky, but as is the case at this circuit, and of course with the rain there's no DRS, it's incredibly difficult to make a move, and a move will require a lot of skill, not just from the overtaking driver but also from the defending driver to keep it clean. Of course, in order to battle we need to be able to battle cleanly, otherwise what's the point? Yellow flag in the first sector though. You'll be pleased to know that that has now disappeared. Now for Impossible Bacon into the pits. What tyre is Impossible Bacon going on to? Is that a medium that I spy? Let's look closer, shall we? It is. Select tyres for Impossible Bacon. Let's watch along with him, at least for the first sector. That track looks very greasy. It looks very slippery. I'm not going to say that these are the wrong tyres for the current conditions, but 99.9% of people would say that these are the wrong tyres for these conditions. Some water still being flicked up off of the track as well. Bacon using some ERS for good measure. He doesn't want to use them in the traction zone, so he may as well use them now. Looks like he's got some grip at least. It could certainly be worse. Ryman's setting a new fastest lap of 151.181, but he continues on in this Grand Prix. The track, it doesn't quite look like it's in that changeover period yet, but it looks like it's starting to get close. But Singapore, there'd be a pretty high ambient temperature. Perhaps that would evaporate rather quickly as we see a whole host of drivers coming into the pits. Dusty, Cam Tizzle, Scavney, Texas Tornado, and Holly Red, all coming in. Sharia Coleslaw jumping all the way up to from his very lowly starting position. The top three though, the guys that are really in contention for this win, they're staying out. Will we perhaps see them pitting in this next lap? Maybe two. We'll have to wait and see. VTEC jumping over Unholy Red Eye, who is leaving the pits now. Now, the track looks a hell of a lot drier. I would say this is dry tyre time. And I think we will see a fastest lap this lap from a drive on the dry tyres, and I think it will be Bacon. We have a yellow flag as well for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, as nobody seems to be struggling. We have a move here. Texas Tornado making his way past Dusty Lusky. Cam Tizzle still behind him. You know, we were watching this fight earlier and it looked like Cam Tizzle was going to get past Dusty at any opportunity. Imagine you were told Cam Tizzle 2 laps ago that someone was going to get past Dusty and it wasn't going to be him. Let's hop on board with Ryan. He might be pitting this lap. Yes, he is. As is Lanzi and as is Dace. As is Electric Blade. Everybody on the intermediates has realised, oh no, it's dry. Get me in the pits. Lanzi there. Ryan, sorry, we see coming out of the pits. Lanzi enters. We'll stick it on tyre. We'll see Texas Tornado has received a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings on track limits. Lanzi and Rymods both going to hards. Dace going to the mediums, of course, with 18 laps left of this Grand Prix. Electric Blade also opts for the mediums. It'll be interesting to see who exactly has picked the right strategy here. Perhaps Dace anticipated that the other drivers would be going to hards. Perhaps he even thought himself that hards were the right option. But by going on to the hards, he's just doing the same as everybody else. And how can he expect to gain an advantage? So perhaps he thought, let's take a risk. Let's go for the mediums. Let's hope the mediums work. Of course, the mediums have a lower optimal operating temperature than the hards, due to the makeup of the compounds. Might help with these cooler conditions. As we see cars fighting here, we'll hop on board with VTEC and watch on as we see, I think that's Cam Tizzle going to the inside, Bursey getting passed by VTEC getting passed by Nicky as well. Cam Tizzle in P7 still behind Dusty Lusky and Bursey in P8, but it's starting to get a little bit feisty there in the midfield. Dace might also be looking to make a move on Lanzi sometime soon. Bursey under pressure from Nicky 64, and Cam Tizzle is all over the back of Dusty. Will we see a crazy move into the hairpin? No, we won't, but he takes a wider line, looking to get the exit, and he might actually have the exit here on Dusty. He's going to be tucked up right behind him in the slipstream. DRS not yet enabled. He doesn't use his DRS. If he had, perhaps he could pull alongside, but there's still some water on the track. Race control party comfortable with enabling DRS, and they aren't. Army Forever getting lapped there, as is his complete and utter lack of pace. And Tizzle all over the back of Dusty Lusky. As we see Nicky, why? I thought if Nicky could not bottle it this race, he could do well, but that is ignoring the fact that he is Nicky. As we see Cam Tizzle setting the fastest lap, a 149 point something or other, but Unholy Red Eye beats that with a 148.89, the first driver into the 148s. DRS now enabled. That will be music to the ears of Cam Tizzle, who has been stuck behind Dusty Lusky for I don't even know how long. It's felt like 25 years. He's finally going to have DRS to aid him and get him past the Canadian. He's already up 1.5 seconds in Sector 1. We see some yellow flags as well for one of the Haas drivers exiting the pits, as we see a fastest first sector there by Bursey. The track rapidly drying up as well. Still some flicks of water getting kicked up by the tyres, but for the most part it seems dry now. Dace all over the back of Lanzi as well. Cam Tizzle still all over the back of Dusty. I almost feel like as long as I'm watching Cam, he's not going to be able to make a move on Dusty. That's what it's felt like for these past 15 laps. This Ryan Rod set to 144.849, the fastest lap of the race so far. He's now 6.5 seconds clear of P2. He looks very comfortable, and I think the only person that could take the win away from Ryan Rods today is Ryan Rods himself. Cam Tizzle struggling ever so slightly for traction out of the underbridge chicane. Through the final corner we go. We could have got on the power a little bit earlier than that, I think, but he has the DRS now. Bursey's setting the fastest lap of the race. He's all over the back of Cam Tizzle. Bursey's come out of nowhere. He's got great pace, and he's certainly not someone to be ignored. Nicky, after his incident, finds himself setting a 144.803, so the Wisconsinite clearly has some pace. Bursey not having the greatest corner through there. This should be an easy move for Cam Tizzle. Both drivers using the ERS. Dusty defending slightly to the inside, but Cam Tizzle still manages to find his way there. They're going to touch. It's a little bit sideways from Dusty, but not cataclysmically so, and Dusty's going to lose the position there. Bursey could look to maybe even make his way past as well, in addition to Cam Tizzle, but he's going to have to settle in behind, unfortunately. Sharir Coleslaw under pressure from a possible Bacon who exceeds track limits there. Pretty clearly, on my view, that's going to add a warning to him, I would imagine. Onto the straight we have VTEC and Scavney. Scavney most likely wants to make a move on VTEC here, if he can, but I think he's going to be too far behind. Moves to the outside, and VTEC has all the right in the world to take the racing line through that corner. Ryan Rod's setting the new fastest lap of the race as he begins to catch people that you wouldn't even think he should be lapping at this point. I mean, he's comfortably in Sector 1 by now, and a driver like Texas Tornado will be looking over their shoulder hoping they don't get lapped anytime soon, but it might take a car to prevent them not being. Dace right on the back of Lanzi here as we go onto the straight. Dace taking a tighter line as well through the apex. Clearly has a little bit more rotation in the car than Lanzi does. Dace could make a move here. Lanzi defends slightly to the inside, and Dace has to settle in behind as he sets the fastest Sector 1 of the race so far by over half a second. Dace could have looked to make a move down the inside there, but he plays it safe, doesn't want to send a risky move. We've got VTEC and Scavney here. Scavney's around. Unfortunately, I missed that. Perhaps a little bit of contact there between Scavney and VTEC, or maybe Scavney lost out. Can't say for certain until we see the driver's perspectives on that, so I wouldn't want to make a judgment on that incident. Here are Sharia and Bacon, the Red Bull teammates, fighting into the left-hander. No team orders there as Sharia holds a position around the outside using the line that grants the highest minimum apex speed. Scavney picking up a 3-second time penalty to add salt to the wounds. And oh, we go live to Nicky being Nicky. Not much interesting to see there, but the Red Bull guys are going to be catching up to Nicky here. Will they make a move on him? Yellow flags are flying. Nicky just surviving for the time being, though he is going to have hot tyres, and I'd imagine Shreya, Coleslaw and Bacon may find themselves within the DRS range of him by the time they get to the next detection point, which is on the exit. Perspective really shows the fact that Shreya is carrying much more speed than Nicky 64 as Cam Tizzle grabs the fastest lap of the race at 142.1. Nicky might actually just be able to escape the DRS here of Shreya, and I think he does, meaning no respite and no protection against the DRS of his teammate Impossible Bacon behind him. Dace is also all over the back of Lanzi, but there's no way to make a move through here, at least not for the next, not until the next straight. Bacon picking up another 3-second time penalty there as he flicks the DRS open and tries to put the pressure on Shreya Coleslaw down this straight. We've got this and we've got the fight between Dace and Lanzi, neither of which come to fruition in the way of a position change. We hop over to Dace, who has Electric Blade just behind him. Lanzi's pace does not seem as strong on the dries as it did in the wets, as we see Cam Tizzle having a spin as technical of the race so far. DRS open on the back of Electric Blade and Dusty Lusky's car. Nicky falling down the order as he has yet another spin. It does seem that every single race I see of Nicky, he has at least 3 or 4 spins, and even if you have decent pace, as the Alfa Romeo driver does, I don't think any amount of pace is going to save you from 3 or 4 spins a race. You're just losing far too much time. Bursey putting the pressure on Dusty Lusky. Wanted to make a move if he can down Raffles Boulevard. Has to stay behind the Alfa Romeo driver. Cam Tizzle has disappeared a little bit from this fight now, of course with the issues he ran into earlier. Even Electric Blade now trying to put pressure on Dace. Ryan Rod's disappearing off into the sunset. Impossible Bacon all over the back of Shreya. Can the Brit make a move on Shreya Coleslaw? Doesn't look like he can for the time being. We've got a car off. Is that Bursey? It is Bursey. He's recovered back onto the racing surface, and it seems he's avoided any damage. However, he has lost a lot of time as Scavney sets the new fastest lap of the race, a 141.4. We've got Dace all over the back of Lanzi. Dace is going to have the DRS as well. You would think he can make a move here, but Lanzi just seems to have too much straight line speed. He has to settle in behind him as well. Lanzi with more ERS as well. That's another factor to consider. And let's just go ahead and check back in with Ryan Rods. our current race leader. Leading rather comfortably from P2, Lanzi. He comes over the bridge with Dace in hot pursuit and Electric Blade just behind him. Dace with the DRS wide open, but it's just not enough to get close. Impossible Bacon looks down the inside of Sharir Coleslaw into the left-hander. Bacon with the inside, and Sharir Coleslaw maintains the overall speed throughout that corner, as he did on the previous battle between those two drivers through that corner. That outside line, you may think, I want the inside line, I want control of the corner. Well, if you have that outside line, you can sweep side and carry a higher minimum apex speed. Sure, but you're doing it a hell of a lot quicker, and that's worked out for Sharir Coleslaw so far. Scavney sets the new fastest lap of the race. It's all over the back of Lanzi as they move through turn 3. Lanzi really struggling to stay ahead of Dace. Dace with the tyre advantage, at least in the short term with those medium tyres. Lanzi will be hoping to hang on until those mediums acquire quite a bit of wear. We watch Lanzi's view behind him as he keeps Dace in P3. And there goes Bacon. Into the wall he goes, and that is going to be his chances of overtaking Sharir over. For once, Nicky gains a position through a spin instead of losing it. Wow! I'll send him a postcard. Not much has changed in the podium position, and Lanzi all very close together. The American driver trying to put pressure on the Dutchman, as we see Impossible Bacon in the pits losing positions to even VTEC as Nicky retires from the session on the track. This could be a safety car, and it is in fact a full course safety car. For once, one of Nicky's crashes, or spins, sorry, results in a crash, and we see him there on the right hand side of the track facing backwards. The only safe way to recover that car would be through a safety car. So with the race taking this long, there's only one thing I can do, and that's to put a naan bread in the oven. Now, they always say with naan breads that you're supposed to put a little bit of water on top first. I'm not too sure about that. You're right, continuing on in this race, but that Dace Lanzi all deciding to jump into the pits there. So Ryan was kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation there. If he hadn't have pitted, perhaps the guys behind him, if he had pitted, sorry, the guys behind him perhaps wouldn't have pitted and would have gained position. If he didn't pit while the guys behind get a free pit stop, so P1 is the last place you want to be when a safety car comes up. We see VTEC peeling into the pits, making sure he revs out first gear first. Check that I'm awake. I am in fact awake. VTEC. Dos gracias, amigo. Most drivers just taking their positions now. We see Scavney with a penalty. I'm not sure if he has pitted. Still on the medium tyres. Let's have a look. Not pitted. Will he pit this time around? He won't. He's more concerned with catching up to the back of the pack, which is in sector 3. This is another thing to consider. I mean, the safety car will stay out for 3 laps if the entire field do not catch up. Scavney is not even halfway through sector 1, and the safety car is halfway through sector 3. Will he catch up in 3 laps time? We'll soon see. Will Army Forever cause more problems than his appearance in this race actually contributes to the league? With him being lapped, he's going to be in the middle of the train during this safety car. Of course, as a lapped car, he'll have to yield. Hopefully he does do that, but sometimes cars will try and desperately make up those positions and unlap themselves on the safety car. I'm not saying that's what will happen, but it's something we could possibly speculate about. I, for one, I'm glad that I'm not in the race here, because this is a difficult tactical scenario to think about. As Ryan Watts has pitted, he's come out in P1 still on fresh mediums, but he does have Dace breathing right down his neck. That 9-second buffer that he had got. This is the perfect time if you're watching the stream to go and grab a snack, a drink, take a comfort break, because we'll be seeing 1 or 2 more laps of this safety car, I would imagine. And we pick back up in a situation where the safety car is coming into the pits. It will be peeling off, and Ryan Rod's becomes the de facto safety car. He decides when we all restart. Drivers having to warm their tyres up, which is why you see them swerving here. They're trying to get heat into those tyres, which makes them softer, makes them grip more. As away he goes, the Ferrari driver, leading from Dace, followed by Electric Blade, who is right up behind the Williams driver. Not close enough to make a move. We see some drivers still swerving, weaving, and swerving down the straight, trying to get some heat into those tyres that are perhaps a little bit caught with the slower rate of travel that we have seen under the safety car. Texas Tornado using those soft tyres to get past, as we see a spin there. That's Scabney and Abozo facing the wrong way. Unfortunate there for Scabney, the American driver. Coming a cropper in sector 1. He'll be hoping he doesn't have any damage, and perhaps he can use the grip of those soft tyres to gain a position or two if he can really eke a good amount of pace out. We see Texas Tornado versus Impossible Bacon. Texas Tornado using those fresh softs to make up a position. VTEC behind Bacon now doesn't look interested in making a move just yet. Unholy Red Eye picking up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, but the most important thing is that the drivers at the front don't have warnings. Unholy Red Eye managed to keep himself out of the barriers. He's going to be side by side with Texas Tornado going into the next right-hander. Can Texas Tornado sweep around the outside? Yes, he can. Impossible Bacon carrying more speed than Unholy Red Eye, as Unholy Red Eye was constricted to a tighter line through that right-hander. Had to carry less speed, and he's going to find himself under pressure now from the Red Bull driver, who has recovered after having a little bit of a nightmare earlier on in this race. Dusky Lusky close to the back of Sharia Coleslaw as he catches a bit of oversteer as I say that. Day setting the fastest lap with a 140.6 as my non-bed is finished in the oven. The AlphaTauri driver putting pressure on the sister team Red Bull. Might want to make a move down the inside here. He can't quite. VTEC got very close to the back of Bacon before he had to back off, and Holy Red Eye under a lot of pressure from the Englishman. Cam Tizzle putting the pressure on Bursey as well. Rymod seems to be pulling a little bit of a gap as we see Bacon facing the wrong way. Army Forever, the only driver that he's ahead of, so he's basically last. Unfortunate for Bacon. Don't know about you guys, but I feel like there's no better texture and taste than some form of bread that is warm. I mean, bread that you can just tear, soft, warm. Oh, amazing. We see a spin, but I don't think it's very noteworthy. As Ryan Rod sets a 139.7, fastest lap of the race so far. DRS enabled this lap. I'm not sure if I've seen a race with so many fastest laps as this one, as Bacon rubs salt into his own wounds there with a spin. Landsy picking up a 3-second time penalty. That could be incredibly important for the podium battle. And it seems unlikely that he'll get a podium here unless Electric Blade encounters some issues. Impossible Bacon speeding into the pit lane and then retiring in the pit lane. But we do have, I think that's Scabney around. Yeah, a slow recovery there from Scabney. Cam Tizzle trying to show on Dusty Lusky ahead of him, but I think that's been the story of the entire race so far. You could have applied that commentary to lap 3 and I think it would have fitted perfectly, would have stood the test of time, because I think Cam Tizzle is accepting this is life now. And I'll tell you, as we hit, it's like calming of events out on the racing surface. There's one thing I must return to, and that's what I mean. Ooh, isn't this just fantastic? Landsy getting close to the back of Electric Blade. Landsy not giving up. And we've got a spin there. Who is that? It's a Mercedes driver. We automatically know that it's probably a bozo. But here goes Landsy to the inside. The yellow flag's fade just in time. Landsy makes the move on Electric Blade. He's around the outside now. Where's Electric Blade? He has to settle in behind as Bursey drops all the way down to P11. Dusty Lusky getting past Sharia Coleslaw. Everything's popping up. Let's have a look. Let's watch on board with Cam Tizzle. It's the back of Sharia Coleslaw. Absolute scenes. Biblical scenes. Only 4 laps remaining of this Grand Prix. It seems that we just had Scabney going around in Sector 3. Scabney not having a great race. I don't think this race is exactly representative of his abilities, but that happens to everybody at some stage. Nobody has a perfect race every single race. Not even Jana Watmir has a perfect race every single race, so I'm sure he won't be too disheartened by this result. Cam Tizzle all over the back of Sharia Coleslaw. He goes to the inside. He makes the move pretty comfortably there with the DRS. I don't think Sharia Coleslaw can fight that one back, at least not immediately. Unholy Red under pressure as well from the GOAT, Vita. I'll tell you what, guys, if you want to know a fun fact of Will Ann's approved fact tech, spins, locks the brakes, saves it from going into the wall but loses a position there to Bursey. Tell you what, guys, Eastern Mediterranean guys, Eastern Mediterranean people, but they know where it's at. Because warm bread, staple. May not be naan bread. It's rather more Eastern idea, but warm bread itself. Whew. Don't even get me started on warm bread. Wait, you have got me started on warm bread. I've been talking about it for the past 25 minutes. We're trying to watch a race here. And putting a little bit of pressure. Ryan Rod's on lap 29 here of 31. Of course, only 2 laps remaining once Dace crosses the line, along with Ryan Watts, of course. I think and Dusty should get in touch. Maybe agree on a collective dot for the minimap. Because I don't remember the last time I've seen their individual dots. Having a great time. Can't fault them. Scabney, not having a great time, but he's on fresh softs. He has all the grip in the world. He can have some fun. Dace is going to be too far behind to challenge for the lead, but someone who can challenge the car ahead is Bursey. Putting the pressure on Unholy Red Eye. Using the DRS to get himself down the inside, but not convincingly. Only the front wing alongside. He has to back out of it just for the time being. Finds himself alongside again, only momentarily. Has to settle back in behind, but he will have the DRS down Muffins Boulevard. Unholy Red Eye running slightly wide at the at the centre point of the corner, perhaps meaning he has to compromise his exit slightly. Bursey could look to make a move down the inside, and he does. He wants a little bit deep though. He makes contact with Unholy Red Eye, who may have just hit the wall there. He does. A piece of papaya front wing launching off of the car. It looks like he maybe could have avoided the wall, but I certainly am not going to blame him for that incident. It looked like Bursey went on the inside there with not much care for the space of the other driver though. I think it's always a good rule of thumb to assume a mistake happened before the team that something intentional has occurred, as we see Texas Tornado losing a position there to Bursey as well. VTEX had a little bit of an issue. Unholy Red Eye for company. Cam Tizzle further demonstrating the need for a collective icon between the McLaren and AlphaTauri driver. Though Cam Tizzle gets on the brakes a little bit late there, misses the apex ever so slightly, and that is possibly going to cost him a run at Dusty Lusky into turn 4. VTEC might be making a move on Texas Tornado. They're side by side going into the straight, and it's VTEC that has the DRS. Though it seems he will be too far back here to make that move on Texas Tornado. They were side by side to the right-hander, but Texas Tornado gets a much better exit and manages to maintain his position. That's Scavney off again. There at turn 4, manages to recover. And the race ends with Ryan Rods winning it. Dace getting very close. I lost track of time there actually, so much going on. Chip blade jumps Lancy, of course, due to that penalty. Dusty Lusky seeing off that race long pressure from Cam Tizzle and taking home P5. Cam Tizzle has to settle for P6. Rear Coleslaw with a solid finish in P7 with Bursey behind in P8, unless Texas Tornado can whirl something up, but he's way too far back and he's more likely to lose a position than VTEC than to gain one back. They make a little bit of contact there actually. Texas Tornado going surprisingly slowly at the apex, but VTEC always had that position through penalties anyway. Scavney with no wing and Unholy Red Eye with no wing, finishing P11 and P12, and that's everybody that was actually participating in this race, pretty much. Let's go ahead and save that hour so we can make some highlights afterwards. Rear Coleslaw picking up driver of the day, so congratulations to him. And here we go, just as I predicted, it's Ryan Rodds taking home the first place position. A familiar sight as Ryan Rodds lifts the trophy. And there are the final results. Ryan Rodds converting his P1 grid slot to a P1 in the race, with Dace in P2 for the Williams. Electric Blade takes home P3, with Lanzi falling to P4 due to penalties. Dusty Lusky P5, a solid finish for him with Cam Tizzle behind him. Sharia Coleslaw P7, the Saudi Arabian finishing ahead of Bursey J in P8. VTEC P9 with Texas Tornado rounding off the top 10. Unholy Red Eye P11 with Scavney P12 in Bacon. And also, who was it? Nikki 64 DNFing from today's race. And with that, we will end today's broadcast. I hope you all enjoyed this rather inconsistent race. Sometimes it was manic with action, other times not so much, but overall I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did, and I bid you all farewell. Have a fantastic night, and away we go.